Welcome back everyone. So before we go any further, I've had a right rough week. I've spent the last 3 days in bed flat out with some kind of flu-like virus. So if I sound and look a bit iffy, that's the reason why. I'm desperately trying to get my act together, but it's been a tough few days. Right, I'm going to have a moan, and what better place to have a moan and amongst friends, because there's been a few things going. New England manager, we've got a New England manager, he's German. Now personally, I've got to be honest, I like the Germans, spent a lot of time with German people. I used to go to Munich all the time before it was turned into a place like London where you no longer feel safe. When Munich used to be Germany, I used to love going there, probably been there, I don't know, 100 times. Love the place. So I've got nothing against Germany or the German people, despite the fact they shot me granddad and, you know, all that stuff, you know, the jokey stuff, if you can call it jokey. But in all seriousness, we've got a new football manager and he's a German. Now, I've got no real problem with that. Would I prefer to see an Englishman in charge? Of course, it's the England football team. I think really should be an Englishman that takes charge of the team. But is the point, is the whole issue with it, is that if I was to come on here today and say I'm offended because the new England football manager isn't English, you'd be called a racist, or you'd say, oh, get over it. You know, the war was like, you know, 100 years ago almost, forget it. I'm supposed to forget that, we're supposed to forget it, forgive and forget, I get all that. But when it comes to slavery and slavery reparation, we're not allowed to forget, even though that was 200 or 300 years ago. And by the way, unless the world had missed it, the British and the British Empire were the ones that were mostly responsible for ending the slave trade. People always forget that part when they tell the story about slavery. So what is it about all these bloody Caribbean countries that all of a sudden feel that we owe them trillions of pounds? For what? Because I've never met anyone in my life that either was, has been, or will be a slave. Never met a slave in my life. Never met anyone that's had a slave in their life. And the reason is because slavery ended a long time ago, thank God. Slavery's got no place in the modern world. We all get that, of course. But if I say, oh, I want an Englishman in charge of the England football team, I don't want a German because of the war, it just doesn't feel right, that would make you xenophobic, far right, racist, fascist, whatever other term you want to use. But we can, or we're supposed to remember slavery, that we were mostly responsible for getting rid of in the first place. What a load of bollocks, honestly. That's the first thing out of the way. And by the way, if you're planning on going to the Caribbean on holiday, give them the Spanish Archer, elbow. Give it the elbow. Let them get on with it. If they hate us that much, then, and if we've been so horrible to them, why should we pay to go on holiday to the Caribbean? Boycott the Caribbean, simple as that. If they reckon, you know what, me and my wife was thinking about going to the Caribbean next year, they can get stuffed. I'd rather go somewhere else where we're wanted. So that's that one out of the way. Secondly, I was watching GB News yesterday and very interesting point. In fact, I'll put the clip up. It's about the terror threat. Let's play that clip.
The head of MI5 has just warned us that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are on the rise again in Britain.
We've seen appalling loss of life in Gaza and now Lebanon, and conflict spiralling in the wider region, with all the implications that brings for Middle Eastern and UK security. Today we are powerfully alive to the risk that events in the Middle East directly trigger terrorist action in the UK. I'll finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most: the worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
So, the worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular Islamic State. That's the head of MI5, and a good topic by Patrick Christie. I like Patrick, he's always on the money. So how have we got to that situation? And more importantly, what are we going to do about it? Christmas is coming. Christmas, right? Remember what that term means. And I believe the country is under threat and we need to do something about it. What can we do? Well, first of all, every Saturday now, we have these hate marches on our streets. In many cases, openly supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, anyone else that basically hates the Christian way of life, us and our country. Oh, and in particular, Jews. Don't forget that. These hateful people that are being allowed to frankly just come on our streets and take the piss wherever and whenever they like. They're allowed to flex. They're allowed to say things that if we were to reverse that and it was me or you saying it, we'd probably be arrested and thrown in jail. Only this week we saw 2 Metropolitan Police officers either displaying huge levels of ignorance when it comes to knowing what Hezbollah are, or an appalling bias towards that side of the debate. Now, it doesn't matter which one it is. Was it ignorance or was it bias? I don't really care. What we do know is that their attitude simply wasn't acceptable. I'm sure you've all seen the video. We got to start clamping down on these people. The time for us to be tolerant is over. We can't be tolerant with these people anymore. They don't understand. They don't understand tolerance. And even if they did, they don't respect tolerance. They only understand and respect one thing, and that's power. And we got to pull our socks up in this country. We got to start clamping down very, very hard on these people that hate the Jews, that hate the Christians, that hate Britain, hate the Western way of life. They've got no place in this country. There's no role here for them. There's no benefit of those people being here, living here amongst us. Let's be clear, these people are the enemy of our nation. They're the enemy of our way of life. They're the enemy of peace. They're the enemy of harmony, and they're the enemy of unification. And don't let anyone try and convince you otherwise. Now let's have a little look at a warning that James Cleverly, former Home Secretary and recent contender for the leadership of the Conservative Party, let's have a little listen to what James Cleverly said before Christmas last year.
The message we're saying is that if people see something, if they're worried about something, if something doesn't look right, go with your instincts, contact the police. They're here to help, and they're here to make sure everyone can enjoy Christmas in safety and security.
So there you go, a warning from the former Home Secretary about our safety coming up towards Christmas. Can someone out there please explain to me how we got to this absolute insanity of having to be careful because it's Christmas? What world are we suddenly living in? What country are we suddenly living in? And this problem has been imported by previous politicians. Let's be honest, this has been going on since that absolute monster Tony Blair came into power all those years ago. And we have been going downhill ever since. And it has to stop. It's got to stop. And we've got to start pushing back on this stuff, because if we don't, it's all over. And do you know what led me to this bit of a rant today, right, is that whilst I've been feeling rough the last few days, I've been laying in bed watching a lot of TV, watching a lot of YouTube. And I stumbled across a website that had a lot of clips taken on the day when Hamas invaded Israel. And there was probably 100 clips that people that were at that music event, videos that they took with their phones during the day and from the security services afterwards. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never seen images that are as shocking, as tragic, as appalling. I wouldn't even begin to start going into describing some of them because they make you feel physically sick. And when I see these people out on the streets on a Saturday protesting and supporting these people and refusing to denounce the actions that they did, the atrocities that they committed on young, innocent women and children. There's no words. There are no words to describe my utter disdain for everything that those people stand for. How anyone with a heart, how anyone with a brain, how anyone with a mind can back those people, can back their cause, is just simply beyond me. I just can't get it. And don't give me the old one about, oh, it goes back a lot further than October the 7th. Well, it may well do. It may well do. But you know what? I don't care how far it goes back. October the 7th last year and the hideous, odious atrocities that a bunch of brain-dead, animalistic terrorists committed changed the world forever. And those people alone are responsible for the deaths that we are seeing in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Israel. Those people started the current chain of events that is going on in the Middle East, and you can't blame anyone else but the monsters of Hamas, the monstrous murderers, the terrorist scum that is Hamas. And for me, I've had enough. I've had enough of looking at their faces. I've had enough of looking at these people dressing up as terrorists on our streets, Hamas headbands, dressing up in outfits that look like glider pilots, all flexing, all taking the piss on a week-to-week basis. When is this government, when is any government, when is any police force up and down the country going to have the guts, the cojones, to get a hold of this situation, get a grip of this situation and start putting these people, one, behind bars and two, on planes and get them out of our goddamn country? We simply don't want you here among us. Let me be very clear. We are a peaceful nation, we are a peaceful people, but even our tolerance has its limits. We have had enough. We're sick to death of your terrorist supporting ways. We're sick to death of your terrorist sympathising. We want peace in this country, and we're quite happy to live together with people who don't share our beliefs or our culture necessarily. We're happy to do that, we're happy to live amongst that. But we're not happy to live amongst these people that want to destroy us, our way of life and our culture to go with it. That ain't a bit of us, that ain't going to happen. We're not going to allow it. So it's down to the government, isn't it? It's down to the government and for the police to pull their finger out and get this nonsense sorted out. I'm not going to hold my breath.